You know that sound? The sudden frantic jet engine whine of your laptop fan just completely kicking into overdrive.
Oh, yeah. Usually right when you open, like, one too many browser tabs.
Right, or you're trying to render some massive video file. But lately, that humming fan actually represents something else entirely. It represents a massive fundamental shift in the whole AI landscape.
It really does.
We're seeing this quiet but huge shift where serious, highly capable models are moving out of the cloud and literally onto the desk right in front of you.
Yeah, because, I mean, for a long time, the default story in this industry was it was incredibly binary, right?
Exactly.
You had these serious, highly capable models, but they lived exclusively in these multi-billion-dollar data centers owned by, massive tech conglomerate.
And the rest of us just kind of paid a toll to rent tokens and send our data away to their servers.
Exactly. But looking at the blueprint we're analyzing today, that story is starting to feel distinctly old.
It really is.
Yeah.
So for today's session, we are exploring a really detailed technical breakdown of Google's new 12 billion parameter model.
Gemma 412B.
Yeah, Gemma 412B. And the mission today is to figure out exactly how this model is moving out of the server farm because it sits in this perfectly balanced, useful middle ground.
Right. It's not magic.
No, it's not some trillion parameter giant that's going to, write a novel and cure diseases at the same time. But it is capable enough to actually do real work completely offline.
Which changes everything for normal developers.
But before we get into the actual nuts and bolts of the guide, I have to play devil's advocate for you.
Okay, lay it on me.
If I already have ChatGPT or, Claude running perfectly fine in my browser, why on earth would I want to put my local hardware through the absolute torture of running a complex AI model?
Yeah, that's the most common question. And the answer really just comes down to control and privacy and permanence.
Okay, privacy makes sense.
Right, because when you rely on a cloud API, you're at the mercy of their servers, their pricing changes, their data privacy policies.
So if you're doing something sensitive, you're just out of luck.
Exactly. If you're parsing highly confidential legal documents, or say you want an AI to read your private journals offline, you absolutely cannot send that data to a random server.
And that's where the licensing for this new model comes in,
And
right?
yeah, this new 12B model gives you an Apache 2.0 license.
Which means what, practically speaking? Like for a normal person?
It means true freedom for developers. You aren't just renting access. You can actually download it, modify it, build commercial applications around it,
Oh, wow.
and own your entire pipeline without owing anyone a monthly fee. And to understand why this specific model is such a game changer, we kind of have to look at the official stats, what a 12B model actually is.
Right, 12 billion parameters.
Yeah, it's positioned as this laptop-class multimodal workhorse. It sits right between the tiny stripped-down edge models you might run on a smartphone.
Like the 2B models.
Exactly. Between those and the massive 26 billion or 31 billion parameter models that just demand serious workstation hardware.
Okay, let's unpack this a bit because the specs on this thing are, frankly, a little hard to believe for a local deployment.
They are pretty wild.
We're looking at a 256K context window, which means you can feed it hundreds of pages of text all at once.
Yeah, an entire book, basically.
Right, and it's also natively multimodal. So it can ingest raw audio, raw images, and even process video just by looking at individual frames.
But there is a catch here.
Right, the benchmarks.
Yeah. When you look at the benchmark tables in the documentation, it doesn't actually beat the heavier 26B models everywhere.
On tests like OmniDoc Bench or MMLU Pro, the bigger models definitely still win out.
They do?
And honestly, I think that is perfectly okay.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, the real victory here isn't setting a new absolute world record. The victory is that a 12 billion parameter model gets so incredibly close to the performance of those massive hardware melting models.
While actually remaining light enough to fit on the machines people already own.
Exactly. Which naturally leads to the big engineering question. How? How does it get that close in performance on vastly smaller hardware?
The secret sauce isn't just better training data, it's actually this highly unusual encoder-free architecture.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's break that down because encoder-free sounds like deep, deep engineering jargon. What does an encoder actually do in a traditional model?
Well, think of a standard multimodal AI system like a highly bureaucratic corporate committee meeting.
Oh, I hate those.
Right. So you have a dedicated vision encoder. That's a completely separate neural network whose only job is to look at an image and describe it.
Okay.
Then you have an audio encoder, another totally separate network that just listens to the waveform. And their individual outputs have to be translated into a format the central language model can actually understand.
Wait, so it's essentially like having three different people speaking three different languages,
Mm-hmm.
and they're relying on an interpreter to agree on a single plan of action.
Precisely. And every single one of those extra translation stages adds latency. It eats up memory. And it introduces another moving part that needs to be, perfectly fine-tuned.
That sounds like a nightmare to manage.
It is. But Gemma 412B completely fires that committee. It takes a much more aggressive direct route. It is encoder-free.
So what does it do instead?
It bypasses those separate networks entirely. It actually maps raw 48 by 48 pixel image patches and raw 16 kilohertz audio frames directly into the language model's hidden space.
Wow. So the text, the vision, and the audio are all flowing directly through one single decoder-only transformer.
Just one brain doing everything.
Now, I know the documentation admits this sounds a lot like mere plumbing,
Yeah, they use that exact word.
but this specific plumbing prevents an absolute nightmare for developers. Because if you've ever tried to debug a traditional multimodal pipeline, you know the pain of having a model look at a financial chart, read a prompt, and then confidently give you a completely hallucinated answer.
Yep.
And it's just because the different embeddings are essentially arguing behind the scenes.
Exactly. When the translation layer breaks down, the whole system just hallucinates. So this encoder-free setup stops that argument before it even starts, because there's only one unified understanding of the data.
So now that we know how it's built, the fascinating part is what it physically takes to run this plumbing on your desk.
Right, the hardware reality.
Because the moment you bring up hardware, you run into the most stubborn myth in local AI. This idea that 16 gigabytes means the exact same thing across all computers.
Oh man, this is the great divide. PC versus Mac.
Yeah, it really is. So what are the actual requirements here?
Well, let's look at the math. If you are on a traditional PC with an NVIDIA graphics card, the only thing that really matters for the AI is VRAM, your video RAM.
Right.
Having 64 gigabytes of regular system memory is great for, letting your operating system breathe. But it doesn't magically transform into fast GPU memory when a heavy AI model refuses to fit on the graphics card.
So what's the floor for NVIDIA?
For running quantized local inference on NVIDIA, a 16 GB GPU is the absolute floor, but a 24 GB GPU, like an RTX 3090 or 4090, is really where you want to be if you want full precision.
Especially if you want to use that massive 256K context window without the whole system just crashing.
Exactly. And then, of course, there's the Apple Silicon side of things.
Right, because MacBooks use unified memory, which means the CPU and the GPU share the exact same pool of RAM.
Yeah. So technically, yes, a 16 GB MacBook Pro can load some of these models, but it really lacks headroom.
I have to bring in the analogy from the article here because it's so witty. They push back on this idea that minimal specs are fine by comparing running a full model on a 16 GB machine to balancing a couch on a skateboard.
It's the perfect analogy. I mean, it's technically possible, but any slight bump is going to cause a disaster.
Because macOS needs its own memory.
Yeah. You have to remember, your operating system needs a few gigabytes just to keep your screen on and run your background apps. So a 24 GB or 32 GB Mac is really the sweet spot.
Now, I want to talk about quantization. Because the article heavily advocates for using a Q4KM quantization to, quote, get your laptop back.
Right.
To a layman, quantization sounds like you're just lobotomizing the model to make it fit. What are we actually doing to it?
You're definitely not lobotomizing it. It's more like rounding off the edges.
Okay, how so?
When these models are trained in the data center, their internal mathematical weights are stored in highly precise multi-decimal formats, usually 16-bit or 32-bit floating point numbers.
Which takes up a massive amount of physical storage.
Exactly. So quantization is just the process of rounding those complex numbers down to simpler 4-bit or 8-bit integers.
Oh, I see. So instead of memorizing the exact distance from New York to London down to the millimeter, we just round it to the nearest mile.
That's a great way to put it. You lose a tiny fraction of mathematical precision, but the core logic stays remarkably intact.
And the trade-off is your fan stops screaming and the machine becomes usable again. Okay, so let's say I've got the hardware sorted. I have my 32 GB Mac or my 24 GB NVIDIA card.
Yeah.
With the hardware sorted, we move to the practical steps of acquiring the model. How do I actually get it?
Well, the blueprint lays out 4 main routes here. You've got Hugging Face, Ollama LM Studio, and LiteRT-LM.
Okay, wait. 4 different ways to do the exact same thing, Why so many options? That seems really confusing.
It does feel overwhelming at first, but developers just need fundamentally different paths depending on what they're trying to do.
Like what?
Well, if you are a casual user and you just want a simple command line interface for quick image captioning, Ollama is your best friend.
Because it just abstracts all the math away.
Right. The command is literally just Ollama pull Gemma 4. It's that simple.
And if I want a clean graphical interface,
Yeah.
like with chat bubbles,
Then you'd use LM Studio for that GUI experience. But, and this is crucial, if you are an engineer who needs deep programmatic control, you need the Hugging Face route.
so you can actually control it with Python.
Exactly. The instruction-tuned Hugging Face model is what you want for that deep control.
Which brings us to actually running Gemma 412b in Python. Because downloading is just step one, right?
Oh yeah, writing the actual code to make it think is step 2.
So the guide breaks down this very clean Jupyter Notebook setup. And there's a specific component mentioned called the AutoProcessor. What is that?
Well, remember that encoder-free architecture we talked about?
The committee firing.
Right. Because of that, you can't just feed raw text and raw JPEGs into the model. The autoprocessor is the tool that formats your text, images, and audio into the exact mathematical shapes the model expects.
Ah, okay. And the specific chat template prompt they use in the guide to test this is so interesting. They prompt it with, how do I find purpose in my life? Don't give me a generic answer.
Yeah, they really wanted to test its actual reasoning, but they also draw up a vital technical tip here. In your code, you explicitly have to set your data type to torch.bfloat16.
Oh, right, BF16. Why is that explicit tip so crucial? What happens if you forget?
If you don't enforce BF16, the system might try to load the model in full 32-bit precision. Think of your RAM like traffic lanes.
Okay.
A 16-bit number takes up 1 lane. A 32-bit number takes up 2 lanes. If you suddenly double the number of lanes required for a 12 billion parameter model, you will immediately hit an out-of-memory error.
So the whole system just crashes.
Instant crash.
Wow. And I love how blunt the author is about this reality. They emphasize that if the model spills into system RAM and just crawls along, you have to stop pretending.
Stop torturing your hardware.
Exactly. Just switch to a quantized build like llama.cpp or MLX.
Which is good advice because code never runs perfectly the first time.
No, it definitely doesn't, which means we have to talk about troubleshooting and fixing common problems.
Yeah, the pitfalls.
Yeah.
And the very first one they list is checking hardware visibility. Before you do anything, you must run NVIDIA SMI in your terminal.
Right, because if that command throws an error, your operating system literally cannot see your graphics card. And there's a great quote from the text here. Python cannot negotiate with a missing GPU.
It's so true. You can't code your way out of a missing driver.
So what else goes wrong?
Well, handling Hugging Face login and license gates is a big one. You might need to authenticate your terminal. Also, if you're using Jupyter, sometimes it launches in the wrong Conda environment, so you have to reinstall it.
And what about LM Studio? The author mentioned it can sometimes just straight up crash.
Yeah, that happens because Gemma 4 uses a radically new structure, the Gemma 4 Unified Architecture. So if LM Studio crashes, you just need to manually update your runtimes to support that specific unified architecture.
Okay, so let's say you've fixed the bugs. You navigated the environments. The model is finally running. How does it actually perform in the real world compared to Google's official, pristine tables?
This is my favorite part of the guide. They look at this Reddit physics test run on a community RTX 4090.
Reddit physics.
Yeah. Basically, they asked both the new 12B model and the heavier 26B model to generate a chaotic triple pendulum and a Galton board in HTML5.
In a single prompt, that's a massive reasoning task.
Huge. And the results are wild. The heavier 26B model used 15 gigabytes of VRAM and hit 138 tokens per second. But the smaller 12B model used only 9 gigabytes of VRAM and hit 80 tokens per second.
Wait, hold on. The 26B won on speed, 138 tokens per second versus 80.
It did, and it also won on the actual physics quality of the code.
But that doesn't make any sense. If the 26B has double the mass, shouldn't it be slower? Why is the bigger model faster?
It's totally counterintuitive until you look at how the models are structured. The source uses this great restaurant analogy to explain it.
Oh, right. Because the 26B model is a sparse mixture of experts model.
Yeah.
And MOE.
Exactly. So even though it has 26 billion parameters, only a tiny slice of them, like 3.8 billion, actually wake up for any given word. It's like a restaurant with many highly specialized chefs, And a dispatcher just assigns the pastry chef to make dessert while the grill cook sleeps.
And the 12B model is a dense model, so it's like one incredibly talented, deeply exhausted chef doing the entire tasting menu completely alone.
That's exactly it. Every parameter fires for every token. So it works harder, which makes it slightly slower, but, and this is the key, it requires way less total space. It only used 9 GB of VRAM.
Which means the 12B won massively on memory usage. And that makes the deployment math, as they say, really awkward for cloud providers.
Awkward in a good way for us.
Right, because if it's a single chef working that efficiently on a laptop, where should developers actually deploy this model instead of using the cloud? Where does it fit?
Well, Gemma 412B isn't for, multi-day research agents. That deeply complex reasoning is still cloud territory.
So no autonomous world domination bots running on my MacBook.
Not quite yet, but local models absolutely shine where privacy, latency, cost, and volume really matter.
Like confidential document parsing.
Exactly. Or offline note search. Or instant voice cleanup.
So what does this all mean for developers? It sounds like it's all about routing.
Routing is the perfect word for it.
You let small local models handle the boring, private, high-volume work, while cloud models handle the scary, deep reasoning parts.
Yes, but to implement that routing successfully, developers need to know how to actually test the local model without tricking themselves.
Right, how to evaluate it. Because it's so easy to run a model locally, see it spit out a fluent sentence, and just assume it's a genius.
Oh, it's the biggest trap in local AI.
So the guide outlines some pretty strict rules for evaluation. You have to make your test boring, repeatable, and slightly mean.
Do not ask for a poem.
No poems. You have to use strict JSON extractions, concrete chart explanations, and messy inputs with known failure modes.
You really have to push it to see where it breaks. And there's another crucial rule for multimodal evaluation. Always keep your modality order clean.
Meaning the order you put data into the prompt.
Right. Always put the image before the text and put audio after the text.
I really love how this section pushes back on the habit of being impressed by confidence instead of correctness. I have to quote the text directly here because it's so good. Vibes are for blog posts and demo videos. Pipelines need contracts.
It's harsh, but it's completely true.
So bringing this entire 10-step guide to a close, what is the ultimate impact of Gemma 412B?
The core triumph of the model is that it makes local multimodal AI feel completely ordinary.
Ordinary.
Yeah. The real victory is pulling a model down, wiring it into a notebook, pointing it at a local file, and just getting actual work done before your coffee cools.
It's the normalization of this incredibly advanced tech, which brings us to the golden rule of local AI that they leave us with. Never benchmark a model on a problem where you can't recognize a lie.
Such good advice.
It really is. They encourage everyone to just go build something boring enough to actually be useful.
Which is what technology is supposed to be about, right?
Absolutely. Well, thank you all for joining us on this highly technical exploration through the shifting landscape of local AI.
It's been fun.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a final lingering question inspired by all of this. If these incredibly efficient local encoder-free models are going to flawlessly handle all our mundane, private, and high-volume daily tasks right on our laptops,
Right.
will the massive cloud models be forced to pivot entirely toward solving unknown scientific frontiers? And if they do, does that leave human cognition awkwardly but comfortably floating somewhere in the middle?
Wow. Something to really think about the next time you hear that laptop fan kick.